there's four key variables impacting how audience planning is evolving right now. And I think that's, privacy and consent. That's the deprecation of cookies and the future of identity. That's the increasing height of the walled gardens and the increasing number of walls that are being erected. And the last piece, I think most critically important to now, is the pressures being created by the COVID pandemic. COVID has forced really every one of our brands to evolve their understanding of their target audience and how best to reach them, and how best to communicate with them. And we've seen this play out. We're currently running a weekly COVID-19 consumer insight study, which examines, behavior changes, media consumption changes, and, even nuances like moods and anxiety and different sentiments around the situation. And it's impacting the way we plan. It's impacting the data that we can extract from our tools. But what it's telling us is that clients need to adapt to kind of three new realities in COVID, in parallel to everything that's happening in the industry. And those realities are around channel consumption, purchase behavior, and hyperlocality. And I can kind of go into each of those a little bit more. Media consumption, we've seen, has dramatically changed over the past 4 to 6 weeks. Consumers are telling us that they are increasing their time in everything from live TV to binge watching over streaming services to audio and podcast streaming. So it's forcing us to use our scenario planning tools and reallocate marketing mix if you are going to continue to advertise during this. And that's because we're seeing not all channels being equal, created equal in this time. The rate of consumption increases by channel is different. So you need to look at each channel individually, how the rate of change is happening within the channel among your most valuable consumers, and then reprioritize which channels to spend against, because you can't just keep spending as inventory increases as a result of the behavior increases. So that's, number one. Number two is we are seeing purchase behavior change dramatically in particular categories like grocery, for example, where we're probably seeing a transformation of the grocery industry for the long haul based on changes to online grocery shopping and online grocery delivery. So we've got our clients now that maybe weren't as at the front-footed from an e-commerce strategy standpoint, suddenly accelerating their e-commerce strategy, accelerating their retail media strategy, and looking at new partners and players like Instacart. And that then impacts their audience strategy, because a lot of CPG clients are focused on purchase-based targeting. But consumers, while they may be buying the same products, are buying it very differently. How and where they buy, in what quantities, in what frequencies, at what times of day, is very different. And the third piece, I would say, is that those consumer behaviors are becoming more in line with their local communities. So as consumers get more connected to their communities during this time out of necessity or emerging habit, which again is a shift from where we've been collectively going as a more globally minded society. If you're a national advertiser, you segment and cluster your consumers based on things other than location for efficiency purposes, on behaviors, on consumptions, on motivations. But due to these restrictions on the way consumers can engage right now, location has become much more critical to understanding and determining how to capitalize on certain behaviors. And in many ways, it's becoming the determining factor of how people are behaving right now. So we've had to kind of adjust and help our national advertisers use the tools and the data that we have to think about audiences on a much more hyper-local level. And in many cases, that's for the first time. So again, we're seeing those three key trends. And those are the three key factors that we are using to reevaluate audience strategies, change in channel, change in purchase behavior, and what's happening in specific locations.
So tell us how those those factors lead to media investment, and particularly understanding what content to invest around.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there's this, from an audience strategy standpoint, given the variables that are or the currents that are undergoing or undertaking our industry right now. The role of context to inform both audience and content is becoming much more intertwined. And I want to talk about that a little bit, and then maybe come back to then how that informs the investment decisions that we make. But I think this notion of audience and context is really important, and it is important despite I think some projections that context will start to reign in the wake of the deprecation of cookies, and I think that is not the right conclusion. And that's because even in a post-cookie world, we see three key kind of data signals still persisting, and they're going to persist and inform how we invest in our media. The first is around customer data, right? So the fidelity and the portability of a marketer's first-party customer records, as well as other first-party data that they can bring to the table, whether that's interaction data on their sites. That's going to be key to unlocking not just loyalty strategies, but increasingly prospecting strategies. How do we go find more consumers that look like my most valuable customers, knowing that I won't have as much open data sets to draw from? So the publisher data signal, I think, is the second most important one, because really anyone that can offer a value exchange, i.e. content, for customer data, login, and can successfully monetize that data, is now going to be a player in this new kind of data-driven marketing ecosystem. And we're seeing that with the rise of paywalls, subscription models, article view limits on all the content that we love, right? Now, I think the notion of more walled gardens, walled data gardens is probably, probably generates a collective shudder among the advertising community. But I think these publishers, these, dare I say, fenced gardens, will be a little bit more willing and creative to bring opportunities to advertisers using not just their data, but their powerful content publishing arms to create unique experiences. And that's something that the kind of big four walled gardens can't necessarily do. So I think that is going to be really interesting to see how publishers start to work their data muscles much harder, and that's going to influence how we determine where and how we value certain publisher partner relationships. And then I think the third signal that everyone I think is hot about again is context. I mean, content search and consumption as a signal for consumer intent and ad receptivity is still going to be critically important. It's not going to be the only signal, as I said, but it's going to be critically important. And we're seeing technology. We're seeing a new kind of wave of innovation, I think, around those technologies, whether that's keyword contextual or semantic targeting technologies. They're getting more precise and more intelligent. So it's really going to be that marriage of audience and contextual data that will be the new way forward, especially as the scale of certain types of behavioral data sets wanes with the deprecation of third-party cookies.